Welcome to today's lesson, brought to you by Plug Into Learning.
All right, so today's lesson is about venture plans. So we are going to cover first what exactly a venture plan is, why we make them, the components and the structure, as well as once you've completed one, evaluating it, revising, and using it. So let's get started. What is a venture plan? Google tells us that it is a document setting out a business's future objectives and strategies for achieving them. So yes, it is a physical document, okay? It is a business document. It is formally written, formatted, etc. Okay, and we see that it includes a fair bit of information about our business. Okay, in kind of a more easy to reach definition, we talk about it a guide or a roadmap for your business. Okay, so it's going to outline your goals. It's also going to go through all of the details about how you are going to achieve those goals. Okay, so let's get into the specifics. Okay, a venture plan is the same thing as a business plan. If you've heard of a business plan before, that is what we're talking about. A business plan is the informal word for a venture plan. Okay, it is created before you start your business. So if you are planning to start a new business, you are going to create a venture plan before you start it, outline what you want to achieve and all of the details about how you're going to achieve it. Okay, and then it should be continued to be updated throughout the life of the business. Okay, going back to it as you get funding or start your business or through the years, about what you're looking to do, what you're achieving, and how you're going to keep going forward. So, why do we make a venture plan? Okay, the first and most obvious reason that most entrepreneurs make a venture plan is to get financing. All right, so if you want to apply for a business loan, they are going to ask you for your venture plan. If you are asking for investments or investors to buy into your business for a share of equity, they are going to ask for your venture plan. Or if you're going to take your business idea to a pitch competition, like a Dragon's Den or any of the other ones that are out there, they are also going to ask for a venture plan. So most people begin to create a venture plan because they have been asked by somebody for one, or it is a requirement before they're able to get the money they need to start the business. However, the better reason, and what often ends up happening as they create them, is a venture plan is really, really important in the planning of your business before you go ahead and start it. Okay? It forces you to sit down and think about and research every single detail and aspect of your business. So, when you have an idea for a new business, it's very easy to get very excited about it and think, you know what, I'll figure out the details later on. Or, you know what, you maybe have thought that you went through everything and all of the details, okay? But often the act of formally sitting it down and creating a very formal business document that explains all of your thinking and all of those details might bring to light some things that you hadn't thought about or hadn't researched before. Okay, in the process of this planning, it is going to ensure that the business is both feasible and profitable. Okay, making sure that you're going to have enough money to start the business and run it through its first year, as well as if it's even possible to get into this field, if you're going to be able to get the things that you need for that. Okay, and of course, ensuring that you have enough resources to be successful. All right, so while yes, most people start because they've been asked for a venture plan, the better reason, or the reason it ends up being great to have, is that planning purpose, okay? And this is the reason that banks and investors and pitch competitions ask for these venture plans, because not only do they want to see the details so that they can assess if you're a good risk, if they want to give you the money, if this is a good investment for them, but they also want to see that you've put in that time and effort into planning your business. All right, so an example for you, this is Emily Rudeau. She is a native of Waterloo. She graduated from Bluevale, and she founded her own company called Oneric. Okay, she was on Dragon's Den, and the link is in the slides if you would like to take a look at that episode. Okay, but she talks a lot about business plans or venture plans. Okay, and she says that the act of creating it is actually more useful than actually having it. So, in her experiences, things changed so quickly that the plan was always out of date. Okay, but she liked having sat down and thought about it and thinking through those details to make sure that before she got started, she made sure she hadn't forgotten anything. All right, so a real life example for you there. All right, so let's get into it. If you have been asked to create a venture plan, what exactly is this going to look like? All right, there are lots of templates for venture plans online. You do not need to reinvent the wheel. Okay, you can look for them. Most banks that ask for them are going to give you templates that you could choose to use. There's lots of government resources. I've linked one in here of the Young Entrepreneurs page through the Ontario government. They have tons of resources if you want to start a business in Ontario as a young entrepreneur. All right, and there are also lots of other paid services that you can pay to use templates or have people help you out with them. A word of warning, I personally would not advise paying for these services. Okay, as I mentioned, there are so many templates out there and so many free resources that you can find everything you need without having to pay for something. And yeah, so I personally wouldn't advise those ones and make sure that you're checking them. Some of them make you believe that they're free and you get through inputting all your data and then you go to export it and it puts a watermark across it and you have to pay to get that taken off. So just really make sure that you check things through before you get started. Okay. The things you want to ensure before you choose a template. As I mentioned, there's lots of them out there, so you need to make sure you're choosing the right one. They're not all the same. Okay, you need to make sure it's appropriate for the type of business that you are wanting to start. And when I say type of business, I mean two different things. One of them is going to be the ownership style that you are using. Okay, if you are starting a business on your own, if you're starting it as a partnership, if you are starting a franchise, okay, we're going to get into more of those terminology throughout the course, but the type of business that you are starting, the ownership style, is going to affect what that document looks like. The other thing that you really need to consider is what exactly your business does, because as you can probably imagine, the business plan or the venture plan for a manufacturing facility like a car manufacturer is going to look very different than the venture plan for a service business like an Uber or a delivery service or a manicure service, all right? Specifically that production section of it. Okay, so the things that are going to be highlighted, the terminology that's going to be used might be slightly different depending on that. So you want to make sure that it's appropriate for the type of business, both ownership style and what you are doing. Okay, it also needs to be appropriate for what you're trying to use it for. Okay, if you're using it to get a loan from a bank or get investors, or if you're using it to assist, a pitch or in a competition, you want to look into which ones are going to matter. Most banks or investors, as long as all the key information is there, they're not so hung up on the formatting of it. However, if you are taking it to a competition, they often have very specific requirements. They may even have page links, etc. So you want to make sure you're abiding by all of those. Okay. You also need to make sure that it will include all of the needed materials that you have to go through. Okay. We're going to talk about what for sure should be in there, but there just may be other things that you're going to want to add. So you need to make sure it has the flexibility to have everything that you need in it. And you want to make sure that it's professional. I've noticed in the last number of years that a number of the templates that are available are very, what I will say is flashy. They're very focused on the design and making it look creative. If it is a creative business that you're going into, that may be applicable, but you just really need to make sure that the design doesn't take away from the content. Okay, there's nothing wrong with making something look great and to grab attention, but you have to make sure that it is still professional, it is still appropriate for what you're using it for, and that the content that you're going through is what is most important. the components of a venture plan, what needs to be there in every venture plan that is created. The very first thing that should be included in your venture plan is an executive summary. This is consistent with most business reports that you're going to create. And what an executive summary is it's usually a single page, and it is a summary of the whole report. All right. It is often one of the things that most people that are first starting out struggle the most with writing. So I suggest you write it last. Okay, you're going to go through, you're going to create your whole venture plan, you're going to go through all the details, and when you get to the end, you're then going to be able to more accurately summarize and list the most important details. The reason we have an executive summary, if we are being honest, is that most people that look at your venture plan may only look at this one page. Okay, it's kind of like on an audition. Okay, so they're going to read your executive summary, and if it sparks their interest, then they might actually go into your venture plan for more details. Okay, but if it doesn't, then you're not going to be getting any more attention from them. So it is very, very important that it is written effectively, and we will go through exactly how to write one. But as I mentioned, even though it's the first page on the venture plan, it is going to be written last at the very, very end. All right, the next part of your venture plan is going to be your mission statement and your goals. Okay, what this is doing is showing that true purpose and direction of your business. Okay, so yes, we do manicures. Yes, we sell cars, but what are we really wanting to do with this business? What is that most important aspect of what we are doing? Okay, and making that very, very clear right at the beginning of the report. Next, you're going to talk about your market research. So before starting any business, very, very important that you do conduct market research, whether it's primary or secondary research, it must be done, and it must be highlighted in your venture plan. Again, the point of this document is to convince a bank or convince an investor that they want to give you money. That means that you need to show that this business is going to be successful, because without the business being successful, they don't get any money out of you. Okay, so showing them that you've done research, showing that there's customers that are interested in your product, that you found this gap in the market is really, really important. It's also setting the stage for you to be able to use the results of your market research throughout the rest of the venture plan to add proof and add validity to the other things that you're saying and the other plans that you have. Okay, so you want to give them the details. Okay, we're not necessarily, putting in the whole survey, but we want to talk about who we talked to, how it was conducted, et cetera, et cetera. The next part is going to be talking about the resources that are needed. So we're now getting into kind of the bulk of the venture plan and talking about what we need. Okay, this is going to come from research, and it needs to be backed up, so it should be sourced. The first thing you're going to talk about is your ownership structure. Okay, and this is where, when I talked about the formatting that you're going to use, this is the part that you want to check on. Okay, so you need to be talking about which ownership structure you've chosen, as well as who the owner or owners are and what skills and qualities and attributes they have that are going to make them successful. Okay, having a great idea, having a wonderful wealth research plan is important, but a lot of investors know that when they are investing in a business, they're really investing in the owners. Okay, yes, there needs to be a great idea, but even with a great idea, businesses may not be successful without the right owners who are motivated and are going to be able to make this work. So here is where you can include, past experiences, things that make you eligible as an owner, that are going to make you successful in this business. You can also refer to kind of those personality and those skills and qualities that you have that are linked with success in business as an entrepreneur. All right. The next part of resources is going to be both physical and intellectual resources. Okay. So this could literally look like a list. We're going to talk about it in more detail, as I mentioned. Okay. But you need to have researched everything that you need. Okay. Physical are physical things that you need. Okay. Are you buying land or are you going to rent it? building? Are you going to rent it? Do you need vehicles? Do you need equipment? Do you need tables and chairs? Literally a list of everything that you are going to need to make your business successful. Okay, and the reason it says intellectual is that not all of those things are going to be physical items. Very important things are going to be licensing or other legal requirements for your business, as well as insurance for your business. Okay, those investors are going to be looking that those things are listed, researched, understood. Okay, and as well as that, you're also going to talk about the human resources that are going to be needed. Okay, it might be that your business, it's just going to be you running it at the beginning, so you wouldn't be hiring any staff, but you still do need to include this section because you do need to talk about how you yourself are going to be compensated. Okay, are you taking a wage from the business no matter how much money it makes, or are you going to wait till the end and just take the profit? Okay, also, what exactly are you doing? What is that role? And then beyond that, going into the future, is there going to be other staff involved? If there is, how are they going to be hired? How are they going to be compensated? What are those schedules going to be? And what are they going to look like? Okay, so that's all really important research that you've done and that you've included in the venture plan. All right, and then moving on, the fifth section is operations. Okay, this is literally how is this business going to run, and it should look through the full first year of your business being in operation, and you can even look beyond that as well. Okay, so the first section is production. Okay, things to note: there are types of business that do not make their own goods. Okay, and service businesses. So when we were talking about which template you're going to be using, that's where this section might look a little bit different and you want to focus on. Okay, if you are producing a good of any type, which means you are modifying something in any way, okay, there should be a plan. Okay, literally, how is it going to go through each step? Who is ordering the items and making sure they're there on time? Who is putting this together? Who is doing quality control? Kind of like, what does that look like? If it is a service business, this is still relevant. Okay, if you think of going to a hair salon, there might be a person that meets you at the front desk and does the scheduling and answers the phone, and then they would move you to the person at their chair and they might take you to wash your hair. So there is still a plan that's important. Production should also go through all the resources that are needed for production. So there could be a little bit of overlap here from the last section of resources, okay? But it's just going into more detail of saying, these resources that we listed, these are the ones that are going into actually making the good or service that's going to be sold. Okay, as well as some focus on productivity. How are you going to make sure that things are being done in a productive way, not wasting money, but still getting the quality that you're looking for? The next section is quite large, which is your marketing plan. Okay, so remember, marketing is different than advertising. Advertising, as you can see, is one of the items in marketing that we want to look at, but we also have to focus on distribution. How are we meeting our end customers? Are we making an item and selling it to somebody else who sells it to our customer? Are we going to them directly? How is that going to work, and what things do we need to focus on? You also need to talk about your pricing strategy. Okay, and we're going to do a bunch of work on this and understanding how we actually go about setting a price. And so your venture plan should go into detail on that. You need proof. You should be looking at your competition's prices. You should be looking at what your customers are willing to pay. This should come from the market research that you are putting in, as well as how you want to position yourself in the market. Okay, and as well as I mentioned, advertising. How are customers going to know about you? What is that plan? And what's that plan going to cost? All right, and then the final section are your finances. So while this is at the end, this is very, very important, and it is one of the sections that if somebody looks past your executive summary, they're likely going to go to first. Okay, so the reason it's at the end is because you need all of the other information, all of the other research that you've done to be able to come up with this section. Okay, you need to create a cash flow forecast for the first year of business. Okay, and what this is doing is it's not focusing on profit. It's focusing on making sure that you can pay all of your bills to get you through the first year. Yes. Okay. Making a profit is important, but we do know that usually in the first year or two, that's not something that happens. And we know that many entrepreneurs fail because they underestimate how much money they're actually going to need. They get the money they need to start the business, but they don't realize that they need more money to be able to run the business for that first year or two. So that's what your cash flow forecast is going to go through. And like I said, we're going to go through all of these things in very specific detail. Okay. From your cash flow forecast, you're going to be able to come up with what's known as your startup capital that's required. Okay. This is the amount of money that you need to come up with to start this business. Okay. How much money needs to be in the bank on day one before you hit that go button and get started. Okay. And then also, where is that money going to come from? Okay, some of that might be coming from you as the owner. A large chunk of it might be, but likely if you're creating a venture plan, it's because you're needing to go to outside sources to get some of this money. Okay, is that a bank loan? Is it investors that you're giving away some ownership to? Is it a combination of both? Okay, that information needs to be very much included in this section. All right, so once you've gone through the long process of doing all of that research and putting together a nice professional formal venture plan, you're not done, okay? Because there is what we call evaluating and revising that needs to be done. First thing you're going to do, step one, you're going to take part in some self-reflection. Right? So once you got to the end and you crunched all the numbers and you went through everything that's going to be needed, the time commitment, the money commitment, the things that you're going to have to do, you need to ask yourself some very important questions. Okay. And it doesn't need to be limited to the ones I have here, but is this business still worthwhile? Okay. From the idea that you had in your head, once you actually sat down and thought through all the details, is it worth it to you? The amount of work that's going to need to be done, the things that are going to need to be done, is it still worthwhile? Is it still going to look like what you want it to look like? Next, is it going to be profitable? Once you've gone through those numbers, okay, are you going to be able to get money out of it in the time that you need for your situation in life right now? Okay, and then of course, is it still what you want to do? Okay, there's lots of times in life we get really, really excited about an idea. We do some research and we realize, you know what, maybe there's too much competition. Maybe there's other things going on in my life. Maybe this just isn't quite what I want to do. And that's completely fine. Okay, that is why we do the self-reflection. So after we've done that self-reflection, we need to do some revision. So if the problem is that, this business isn't profitable or there's, too much startup capital needed, cash flow issues, etc., you may need to go back and say, you know what, all those employees I plan to hire at the beginning, maybe I don't need as much. Maybe I'm going to start smaller and make some changes and rerun those numbers. Okay, if it's not looking like what you wanted it to do, it may take some thinking and some changing. And what's suggested is that if you're still interested in doing it, but you're having some problems with these first self-reflected questions, you're just going to go back and revise your plan. Okay, but make sure that whichever section you're changing, you follow those changes through the rest of the plan. Okay, so you're updating that cash flow statement, you're updating that marketing plan if something is changing. All right. So after you've kind of done that self part, and this could flop back and forth a few times, I suggest if you're revising things that after that's revised, you then sit back and do some more self-reflection until you get to a point that you're really comfortable with. Once you've done that, you're going to move on to step 3, which is taking it to trusted advisors. Okay, the first person or people that you should take it to is somebody that has experience in the field of business that you are looking to get into. So if you're wanting to start a restaurant, you need to find somebody who runs a restaurant or who has started one before. Okay, if you want to do a hair salon, same thing. Okay, the reason we go to these people is to look for logistical problems. Okay, in my plan to run this business, in the number of employees I'm hiring, in the resources that I'm looking to buy, and the sources that I want to work with, what might some problems be? They may point out some things like, yes, that low price from China sounds great, but the shipping is going to be 6 weeks, and, maybe that's not going to work for the timelines that you're looking at. Okay, so they might find some things that, maybe you didn't think of. And if they do, then that's great. That's why we wanted them to look at it. Please don't get discouraged. Take that information and go to step 4 and do some revision. Okay, update it using the information that they've done, because what they have done is they have saved you starting this business and failing and having financial implications of that. Okay, after that, you then need to take it to someone or some people, if you can find them, that work in the financial field. Okay, that either, know information or have worked as a loan officer if you're looking for a loan, or have been investors if you're looking for an investment, or have won or judged pitch competitions if that's where you're taking it to. You need to take it to those people so they can look at it from a different perspective of, is there a reason not to invest in your business? Okay, yes, your first advisor told you, you know what, you're good to go. This business will work in the structure that it's in, okay? But then you're taking it to somebody that works in the financial field, and they're going to tell you, yes, somebody would be willing to invest, or no, they would have these problems. And again, you're going to take those problems that they find, and you're going to do revision to update it so that there's absolutely no problems. Okay, this is the step where new entrepreneurs can often struggle with, because they may not have these connections. Okay, and so these are where some of those paid services, or offered for free services, but generally paid services, could come in handy. You might look at asking someone and maybe paying them to do this part. I would say make sure that you've done your research. Make sure that you find reviews. Make sure that their advice is credible. Okay, that is really, really important. Some other places you can go, to find these people is, again, back to those government websites I offered. If you're in Ontario as a young entrepreneur, there's lots of contacts there. Okay, and if you've had experience working in these fields, that's definitely going to help you as well. Know some of these people. Okay, and again, just ask. You may not know somebody in this field, but a friend of a friend may work in that field. So reach out to all of your own social contacts and see, does anybody know anybody that works as a loan officer? Does anybody know anybody that runs a construction company? See who people know, because the world is a little bit smaller than you may think. All right, so once you've taken it to all those advisors, you've gotten their advice, you've revised, you feel like you're ready to go, I'm going to ask you to do one more step, and that is to redo your self-reflection. In the process of adjusting things based on what these trusted advisors have said, there is a possibility that this business plan or venture plan, this business that you're planning to start, doesn't look like the business that you had dreamed up originally. Okay, and so you still need to make sure that this is what you want, that your dream still looks like your dream, that it's still profitable, that it's still worthwhile, and that you're going to be able to get up every day passionate and excited and be able to put in the hours that are needed to run your own business. If that is true, if that's how you feel when you get to the end, then you know what? Green light is go. Okay, and your next step is to take this venture plan to wherever you had planned to take it originally. Take it to a number of banks to look at getting a business loan, take it to possible investors, take it to that pitch competition, and let your passion shine through and show these people why your business is going to be so great. So that is a venture plan in a nutshell. All right, as I mentioned, through many, many more video lessons, we are going to go through each component of this in more detail with more specifics on actually how to go about doing it. But this is our first step in understanding what it is, why it's important to us, what it looks like, what's included.
Thank you so much for watching today's lesson, brought to you by Plug-in to Learning. All the resources used in this video are linked in the description below. If you have any questions, feel free to comment. And to continue learning with us, please subscribe.